Okay, so as far as homework reviews go, you can very much treat these like you do lecture. If you want to code along with me, you're more than welcome to. Just like I was giving the advice to Devin, if while you're coding, if you run into a bug, that's totally fine. Just don't worry about fixing the bug right then. Just keep coding along, and then when we're finished, you can come back and debug it. If we have some extra time or whatever, I can help you through that as well. As far as the homework reviews go as well, I do stick really to the fundamentals. I don't get into anything really too advanced or anything like that. Partly just because I still feel like a beginner myself. So, you know, just trying to build my foundation too. So, all right. So that being said, let me go and share my screen, and we will jump in here. Just get some stuff moved around. Okay, and I have you on my my other monitor, so if you guys see me looking up, I'm looking at you. Okay, so I know that especially in the beginning, getting your project up off the ground is a lot of times the hardest part, especially if you're feeling kind of lost and you don't really know what to do. Just getting that initial bump, just getting going is really difficult. So we're going to try and go through, we're going to start at the very beginning and just go through the whole project from start to finish. And I may call on you guys to help me out with this as well, or you know, ask you guys questions just to you know make you guys keep thinking with this. So so first things first, let's go ahead and create our file. Actually, you know what? Let's just create our file. So what do we do to create our file in our command line?
You do touch.
Exactly. Very good. All right, we'll just call this contact hash. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and open it up in my code editor. And of course, it's going to open on my other screen. Let me just bring that down. Oops. Let's do 1 second. I'm not sure why it's being so difficult right now. Let's just do this. Just keeps opening it in my other editor. Hold on 1 second. It's never done this to me before, so we're wondering if it didn't update that I just don't know about or something. Sorry guys, 1 second. It says it's open, but why is it up there? We'll just open a new window here.
How's it going?
Good. Glad to see you, Nick.
Good to see you as well.
Let's see. There we go. Success. All right. See, everybody struggles. Don't worry about struggling. It's going to happen. Doesn't matter. You know, life goes on. So don't be hard on yourselves for it. Okay. So now that we have that worked out, can everybody see my screen okay? Do I need to make it a little bit bigger? See that text?
It's kind of small.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Just go ahead and keep it there. Okay, so first things first, what I usually like to do is, especially when I'm doing homework, is I like to copy and paste in the objectives that I'm going for. That way, you know, I know what I'm trying to do. So let's just kind of run through that. Basic objectives, I'm sure you guys remember. We're going to build a contact list. We're going to create a menu that allows the user to select, create a contact, view all your contacts, and exit. The menu should loop until the user exits, which means that the user needs to prompt the exit. We'll also be throwing in our 2 bonus objectives as well. So let me just go and throw those in here. So we'll say edit contacts and delete contacts. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and jump on in. So first things first, since we don't have a database or anything like that, we need some data to work with, right? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create our contacts array so that we have some information to work with. So we'll go and do add contacts and make that an array. And this is going to be an array of hashes, right? So who can tell me what a hash is?
Key and the definition.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Arsen.
A pair of a key and a definition.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's a key value pairing. So in this case, now also I guess I should mention as well, hashes do exist in other languages. So for instance, once we get into JavaScript, you're going to see things called objects. Objects and hashes are exactly the same thing. We just call them something different depending on the language. So if you hear me call it an object, I'm talking about a hash. They're interchangeable. They're the same thing. So don't let that confuse you. So first things first, let's go ahead and make some contacts. So we'll do first name. Let's just use my name here. Last name. And let's do a phone number as well, but we'll just call it phone just to make things short and simple. And I don't know if I really want to give out my actual phone number.
Why not?
Well, it's going on YouTube. Never know, never know. Okay, so just to show you guys a little shortcut here as well, if you do Option Shift and then your down arrow on your keyboard, it will copy down that line of code. So that can save you a lot of time when you're typing. So for the second contact, you guys probably don't know this about me, but I'm a huge soccer fan. I love Chelsea Football Club. If anybody else follows soccer.
Yes, I do. I
nice. So I'm going to go ahead and Frank Lampard is going to be in my contact list. Best player of Chelsea of all time. He's now their manager. I'm not sure. You know, nobody probably cares, but that's okay. And let's say he lives in California. Okay, and then lastly, let's go ahead and keep with my Chelsea theme. And we're going to do John Terry. Guess I could have copied that down, but I didn't. So, oh well, we'll just go with it. Yeah, let's say he lives in New York, I guess.
What was that keystroke shortcut to copy the line of code down?
Let's see, it's Command Shift. Oh, nope, sorry. I take that back. Option Shift, and then your down arrow on your keyboard.
Awesome.
Now, another quick command as well is if you want to get rid of a whole line of code, you can just do Command Shift and the letter K, and that'll delete that line of code.
Cool.
Okay, so let's just leave it at 3 contacts. That's enough data to work with here. So, all right, so we have our data to use. So now we have something we can do. Oh, just as a quick side note, as I go through this, just keep in mind the flow of the application. Notice how I'm keeping everything in very specific places. So for instance, I generally always try to keep my data that I'm working with at the top, and then I'll run through my methods after that. So that being said, what is the very first method that we need to create for our contact list?
For me, I started with a menu. I don't know if that's the right way, but
That's exactly what I'm looking for. And I think the reason why we would do that is, well, first off, it tells us what we're doing first here is we're going to create a menu so that we can access our other methods, right? So let's go and do that. So we're going to go ahead and define our main menu. If I can spell, there we go. Okay. Always remember to end your methods. I always write end before I put anything in my method. That way I know that I've already ended it and I'm not going to run into a bug. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do puts, contact list. Let's see, so we'll do one, view contacts. Let's see, add contacts. Okay, 3 was edit. So we'll edit contact. 4 is delete contact. And then number 5 is exit. Okay, so there's our basic main menu. So if we go into our terminal, let me go grab my terminal here. Let's see, enter a couple times. There we go. Okay, so if we go ahead and run our code, oh, it's not going to do anything. It's not doing anything. So how come our code isn't running?
It hasn't been called.
yeah.
Precisely. So let's go ahead and call our main menu here. And let's go ahead and try that again. Let me make that a little bigger for you guys too. Yeah, there we go. So we know that our menu's working. It's just kicking us out because we haven't, had anything to it. But one thing that's a good habit to get into is testing your code often. Test your code a lot. Every time you write a line of code, test it. The reason why is it's going to be a lot easier to track your bugs and figure out where you caused a problem if you're testing your code a lot. If you're writing a lot of code and then you're testing it at the end, then you're going to run into bug after bug after bug to get it going, and it's going to take a lot of time to backtrack and figure out where to even start with your first bug. So test your code often, okay? Okay, so there we go. Here's our main menu. So let's keep building on this. Let's see, let's go and do a print. And that's just so the user knows to input something there. That's really all that's doing. And then let's go ahead and do a case statement here. And our case is going to be based off of the input we're getting from our user. So we're going to do a gets.strip here. So here we're going to say when, and there we go. So when they press 1, we're going to view contacts, right? So for right now, we'll change these later, but we're just going to just put in some fillers so we can test our case statement in the end. We're going to put view contact, and then we'll probably want to send them back to the main menu after we run our method. That way it just keeps looping them through the menu, because as it says here, remember the menu should loop until the user exits, right? So that's just going to keep that loop going for us. Another quick side note is notice how I am indenting my code. If you keep your code indented properly, it's going to be a lot easier for you to read, for other people to read, and it's going to do us as TAs a lot of favors when we're grading your homework. So get in a good habit of trying to indent your code. I know at first it's pretty hard to do because you're still learning and you're not really sure when to indent, but generally anytime that I'm making a new part of the method, I'm going to indent my code just so I can keep track of what's going where. Okay? If you have any questions on that, well, is there any questions on that? No, we're good? Okay.
So just to double check, the case gets.strip, that's just to access, that's just accessing the actual main menu, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so this case.getStrip, what that's doing is that's taking the user input. So that's saying, okay, so when the user inputs something into the terminal, then it's going to run, whatever its input.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we're doing these when statements, is to tell this case method what to do when the user inputs, 1 through 5 or something else.
So the get.strip is going to be used pretty often.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of gets.strip, gets.chomp, all sorts. Gets.toI, which changes it to an integer. All sorts of different methods you can do on that.
Awesome.
What if you were to use case gets chomp? Would that still work to access the case statements?
Yeah, it absolutely would.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. Okay, good deal. All right, so let's go ahead and just keep building out our case statement here. So 2 is our add contact. And then we'll probably want to send them back to the main menu as well. Let's see, so 3, oops, that's our edit contact.
So I have a question with that real quick.
Sure.
So when I'm cleaning that up, so is there any way to, clean up the code to make sure that they're all aligned properly? So because sometimes I forget to do that, or is there a way to just kind of clean it up automatically or make it match nicely?
A really good question. As far as raw Ruby, like what we're doing now goes, I'm not aware of any. There might be an extension you can download into your code editor that might do it for you. I know once we get later on into React, I know in React there is an extension you can use that will do a couple key presses and it will indent your code for you. But for now, I don't think there is actually a shortcut. And quite honestly, I think that it's probably better not to use a shortcut just yet, because that'll make you learn how it's supposed to be indented before you go on and use the shortcut. So.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Good question, though. Good question. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our main menu after our edit contact as well. 4 is our delete contact. And we'll want to go back to our main menu. So when 5, let's see. So here we're actually just going to do our exit right here. So I'm just going to give the user a little message here. Let's see. We'll just say thanks for using contact list. And then we're just going to exit. So if the user inputs 5, that's going to run. It'll exit them out. That's 1 down for a working menu. So lastly, here we're going to do an else statement for our case. And here we're going to we'll put invalid.
Entry.
Yeah. Sure, entry sounds good. And then we'll just send them right back to the main menu. So what this is saying is if they input anything other than 1 through 5, then it's going to throw this invalid entry message and then send them back to the main menu to try again. So let's go ahead and test this out. Let's just make sure this is working here for us. Oh, so here we go. We ran into an error, 47, syntax error. Okay, so it's saying let's debug this a little. Let me make this bigger. Let's debug this a little bit. So it's saying syntax error, unexpected end of input, expecting keyword end, right? Main menu. Okay, so right here, RB 47, this is telling us what line of code threw the error. So if we go back into our code error and look at 47, it's saying that this line, when it got to this line, it had an error because it was expecting an end. Okay, so that being said, who can tell me what the problem is?
You need to end again.
Okay, where do I need to put that?
Above the main menu on line 47.
So right here?
I think so.
I think
Okay.
after 44.
Yeah, actually, it would work in either place. So really what's happening is this end right here is ending our main menu right now.
Okay.
And one needs to
And
end.
the case?
Does the other one need to end the case? Is that what's
The
going on?
case.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't end my case statement. So I could put the end here, that would work, but it would actually be a little bit cleaner to put it here because then it's going to indent properly, and we know actually we want to line that up.
That organization.
Yeah, exactly. So if you notice, it's always nice to keep your ends lined up with the method that they're ending. So if you notice here, my main menu is ending here, and then my case statement is ending here, right in line with each other. So that'll help you keep yourself organized, and if you are missing an end, it'll be a lot easier to find where you're missing it. Okay, so now that we've got our end in there, let's go try this again. Okay, great. So we're in our contact list. Let's just run through the menu. Okay, so we have our view contact. Let's try add contact. Okay, it says add contact. Edit contact. Delete contact. Before I try edit, I'm just going to type in some gibberish. And there's our invalid entry. And then if I hit 5, our exit's working. Okay, so we've cleaned out our bug. We have a working contact list up to this point. So from here, let's go back into our code and let's start getting some of these methods to work. So let's just start from the top and just kind of run down these here. So let's start with our view contact. So let's go and define our method. We'll just call this view contact. Actually, we'll make that plural.
Interrupt you really quick. I have a question.
Sure.
I see that every case has the main menu repeating. So is there a way we can just put main menu into the end, like line 45?
Like here? You mean right there?
Yeah.
No, I don't actually know. Let's try it. See what happens. Oops. This is the fun part about coding, is if you don't know, you just got to go try it and see if it breaks. So let's see what happens. Yeah, I didn't like that. I think it's because it's getting in between the two ends, so it just can't read it.
I did do it on my homework assignment. It seemed to work when I tried that approach, but.
Well, it could be that just the way you coded it, it does work. Because I mean, there's more than one way, obviously, to code these out. So if it worked in yours, awesome. You know, that's good.
Yeah.
But the way that I'm doing it, unfortunately, it's not going to work. So actually, let me just go ahead and another shortcut, Command Z, will take out your last little bit of code.
I'm sorry, but when I go into the terminal inside of VS Code,
Oh, yes.
I know that I'm just entering something slightly wrong into the terminal, and it's not letting me run the program. I'm running the Ruby space. Mine is called contactlist.rb, and it doesn't look like it's pulling it up or anything.
Okay. Are you calling your main menu method at the end?
Would you just run this program in the terminal one more time so I can see how you enter it in?
Yeah, of course. So I just do Ruby and then contact hash .rb.
Yeah, interesting. I'm curious as to
Um,
why it's not pulling it up.
One thing I will say too is I know that James uses the terminal inside of the VS Code a lot when he's teaching you guys, which is fine because
the other one's better.
Yeah, it makes it really quick for him. But when you guys are actually running your code, I highly suggest you run it in your actual iTerm, because the terminal in VS Code isn't perfect. I've seen it where it will actually not work in VS Code terminal, but then you run it in your iTerm and everything's working fine.
Nice. Let me try it in a different one.
Yeah, try that out. If it's still not working, just keep up with me. We can look at that after we're done here.
You got it.
So, cool. Thanks, man. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our view contacts. Okay, so first, let's go ahead and just give the user a little message here. We're just going to tell them these are your contacts. Okay, and then we're just going to put puts here just to give a little space of line. Okay, so here we're trying to get the list of all of our contacts, right? So what are we going to do here so that we can grab all of our contacts and display them? Any ideas?
I mean, you can just enter the array, right? Like at whatever you named your array.
Right. That's definitely a good start.
I mean, that's not a good way.
No, that's exactly what we're going to do. So that's going to grab our array. Now, what do we do with an array in coding? Generally.
That length, maybe.
Say again. I'm sorry, Victor.
Was it that length to show the array?
That length. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to go that way. I'm going to go a little different route.
Do you want to map it?
Yeah, you could map as well.
Would we use each?
Yeah, we would probably do each in this case. And the reason why we wouldn't do map is because map actually returns a whole brand new array.
Gotcha.
And in this case, we don't actually need to do that. So, I mean, it would still probably work. It's just later down, in the code, it could cause problems later on, that sort of thing. But definitely on the right track there. So one thing to really ingrain in yourself is if you have an array, you're going to iterate through your array. Oh, sorry, my dogs are barking. By iterate, I mean you're going to loop. Generally, if you have an array, you're going to loop through your array at some point in your code. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to actually do it each with index, because then I can grab the index from each one, and I can actually have that display in the menu once we run the code as well. That way it looks better for the user, and also when we're asking them questions later on, like editing the contact and deleting the contact, we can use that index so they can choose which contact we're actually going to edit or delete, which obviously we'll get into that a little bit later. So we're going to do our each with index, and we're going to do our pipes here. And we're going to put two things in here. We're going to do just contact. So this is going to make an object of each contact and display that in the loop. Then I'm going to do I. This is just for the index. So that's just shorthand for index. Ruby's smart. It already knows what that is. It's just embedded in the Ruby language. Okay. So here,
Could you write out index if you wanted to?
Yeah, you absolutely could. But keep in mind, if you write out index here, then when we're calling on the index later, you have to write index every time you're calling on it. So if you do just I and you know that's the index, it's going to save you, at least a few keystrokes.
Definitely.
So save you some carpal tunnel or something. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Also, that problem I had before, I just forgot to call on the main menu at the very bottom.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Glad you figured that out. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and let's do an end here. So this end is ending our loop. Okay, so if you do a do, you have to end your do. Okay, so that way we don't run into a bug like we did before where I didn't end my case statement. Okay, so in here, we're going to say for each instance of the contact, we're going to print, and we're going to interpolate here. James has gone over interpolation with you guys, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. So we're going to interpolate the index. Oops, we need that in the curly braces. But we're going to add 1 to the index. So what this is doing, so keep in mind when you're indexing through, the index starts at 0. So if we add 1 to it, then for the user perspective, it's going to start at 1. So it just makes it less confusing for the user. My suggestion to you, especially with my past experience in tech support, always make it as simple for the user as possible. Think that your user is 5 years old and make it as easy as you can so that if a 5-year-old is using your application, they're going to be able to use it without asking any questions. User interface is like a bad joke. If you have to explain it, it's not a good joke. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So we're going to print out the index here. We're just going to throw a colon on the end just to kind of make it a little bit more clear what that is. On the next line, we're going to go ahead and interpolate some more. But here what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go into our hash, and we're going to have to grab a value from our key value pair. So how do I access my hash to grab, so we're going to try and grab the first name. What do I do to grab that first name out of my hash, syntax-wise? And if you don't know, that's okay. You don't have to memorize syntax. It's just good to, get those juices flowing.
It's just like never mind.
No, you're okay. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we have to tell it what we're going into. So we're going into our contact, right? So that's our key. Well, that's actually our hash. But what we need to do is we need to grab the value of first name.
Name and phone number, right?
Yes, exactly. So we're going to do this for each one. So we're going to do on our second interpolation, go into our contact hash, and we're going to have
And then
last name.
Colon, right, yeah, I was just gonna say colon last name.
Yep, perfect. Okay, and then we're going to actually put the phone number on a separate line just to kind of separate it for him, make it look a little cleaner for the user. And we'll say phone number, and then we'll go ahead and interpolate that here. Okay. And that should actually, go ahead.
Why is this empty put? After the print, we have put. Why is that?
This here? That's just going to create it's just going to create an
Right.
extra space. It's just for readability for the user. And we'll run this in just a second. I'll show you exactly what that's doing. Any other questions on this method before we go test it?
Before we go, so why you choose to use print instead of put? Why?
So the difference between print and puts is print doesn't create a new line. Puts creates a new line, so it's going to drop it to a new line. So that means that where I'm printing here and printing here, these are actually all going to be on the same line. but I separated those so that I could grab the index and interpolate that. I mean, technically, I could probably do that on the same line. I could probably throw this inside of here too. But just from my own readability, I just think it looks a little nicer to do it this way.
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions? No? All right, let's go ahead and test this out. Okay, so here we are. Let's go to our view contacts. Oh no, it didn't come out. That's because we didn't call the method. So let's go ahead and call our method here. And let's try that again. Okay, view contacts, there we go. Okay, so we know our code is working, and we know that method is working, so we can actually move on to the next method. So looks like next up we have add contact. So let's go ahead and get that going here. Okay, so another thing to notice too is generally, so I have my menu in order here, view, add, edit, delete, etc. When I'm creating my methods, I like to keep my methods in the same order as my menu. Just keeps it really simple for me. That way, if I know something's not working, I know where to look to find, you know, whatever code I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and do our add contact here. Remember to end your method. Okay. Was everybody able to get their add contact working in their homework assignment yesterday? Yeah?
So,
Good deal. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do here is we're actually going to set a variable called contact, and we're just going to set that to an empty object, or a hash. Okay, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to ask for some user input. So we're going to say, what is the first name? Actually, we'll say the contact's first name. Okay. And then we'll just do a print here. And that's just to prompt the user for their input. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set another variable. We're going to say contact first name equals gets.strip, which is the user input. So what this is doing is this is in our hash, it's creating a key value pair, which the key is going to be first name, and then the value is going to be whatever the user inputs. So that's going to push this up into our hash here, and it's going to create a first name in our hash. So with that, we're pretty much going to be doing the same thing with the first name and phone number. So just to make that a little quicker, I'm going to use my Option Shift down arrow to make a couple of copies of that. We'll just make some space here just to make it easier for us to read. And then I'm just going to have to change a couple things here. So we'll say last name here, change this to last name. And then here is phone number. Having all sorts of trouble here. Okay. There it is. Okay. And then down here, we're just going to change this to phone. Okay. So now, once we get the user input, and actually, sorry, these array brackets need to go here instead of at the end. That would have given us a syntax error for sure. Okay, so we have our square brackets in the right place now. Okay. So we're getting our user input, and we're creating a new hash with that input. So they'll put in their first name, the last name, and the phone number, and then that'll just input that here. So now what we need to do is we need to take that input and we need to push it to our array of hashes here that we're storing our data for our contacts. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to call our @contacts, which is that instance variable that we set here at the top of our code. And actually, instead of equals, we're going to use these two deltas, and we're going to push that contact that we created here to our array of contacts at the top. Okay, so this is a shortcut for the .push method. They do exactly the same thing, okay? So once we have that pushed to the array, we're just going to go ahead and give the user a little message here. So let's say contact, and we'll interpolate these. And we're going to grab that contact first name. Contact last name. And then we'll say
Phone number.
contact phone, to grab the phone number. So that's just going to give them a little message saying that this has been added. And then we'll go ahead and just send them back to the main menu. Okay, so that should actually get our @contact to work. Let's go and test it out. Let's see if that's working. Okay, so here we are in our contact list. We're going to go to 2 for @contact. Oh, once again, we didn't call our method up here, did we? Okay, there we go. We've called on our method. So let's go ahead. Let's try that again. Okay, so we're going to go to 2 to add a contact. Let's see. Let's add Peter Check, who's one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time. Just FYI. Let's see.
Yeah,
And
don't
his...
go to the outfit now.
All right, we'll say that he lives here in good old Utah. Let's just make up a number. Okay, so it's saying Peter Check is added. So from here in our menu, we can go ahead and hit 1 to view our contacts. And here we go right here. And he's been added into our array. So great. All right, so we have our @contacts working. Do you guys have any questions about this method before we move on to our, I think, edit next?
I believe there's one method that you had to end right that you had to add right before the end there. What method was that again? Oh, the main menu.
Yeah, main menu, and then I also had to call the method up here in our case statement that I forgot to do.
Oh, beautiful.
So now that you mentioned that, let's go ahead and learn from our mistakes here, and let's actually call on our method first. So let's go ahead and call on our edit contact. Oh, sorry, any other questions before we go to edit contact? We're all good? Okay. So let's go ahead and make our edit contact method. So we'll define edit contact. And end that method. Okay. So edit contact is pretty tricky. I'm gonna guess that most of you probably struggled with the edit contact. And understandably so, it's pretty tricky. So, so let's just break this down. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to call my view contacts method. So what that's going to do is when they press 3 for edit contact, it's going to display the contacts that they have listed. That way they know, okay, they can go through and decide which contact they want to delete. Because in our view contacts, we have them displaying by their index. So that's going to make it really easy for us to get the user to only have to input a number for the index and not have to enter a name or something like that. It's just going to keep it really simple for them. Okay, so after our view contacts, we're going to just make a little space. And then we're going to say which contact would you like to edit? And we're going to go ahead and print delta just so that they know that we need some user input. Okay, and then we're going to set a variable to contact. We're just going to call it contact. And we're going to go into our contacts array. Oops. There we go. And we're going to say, we're going to choose the contact that the user inputs. So we're going to use the gets to integer. So this turns the number into an integer instead of a string. But here we're going to say -1. So how come I'm doing -1 here?
Is it because in the
Because the array starts with 0.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The array starts with 0. And up here in our view contact, so which we just called, we added 1 to our index so that when it displays to the user, it's showing 1, 2, 3, etc. But when we actually need to go into our array to grab it, it's still going to be indexed 0, 1, 2, 3. So if they're pressing 1, they're actually choosing 0. So we need to tell it to take that added 1 off and just go back to the regular index. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, good deal. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go and just give them another little message. And we're just going to say edit contact. Oops. Here we go. And let's interpolate. Just to make this pretty easy, we're just going to go in and grab the contact first name, last name, and phone number, just so they know that they chose the right contact. And add the colon there. And then last name.
And phone number.
Exactly. What am I doing wrong? I don't know why it doesn't like that. Oh, I see. I'm missing a curly brace right there. Okay, and then we'll interpolate the phone number. Okay, so that way they know they chose the contact they were trying to choose. So it makes it simple for them. We're going to do another puts just to give some space. Then we're going to say, oops, here we go. We're going to print. Let's start with the first name. So what would you like to update the first name to? And we're just going to give them a little message here to hit enter to keep the original name. And I'll show you why we do that here in just a moment. And then let's do a print here as well. Okay, so that'll display the message. Okay, so now we need to get the user input. So we're going to create a variable called input, and we're going to set that to gets.strip. So that's going to set that variable to whatever the user input. Now, what we're going to do is, well, I guess let me ask this first. Has James gone over ternaries with you guys yet?
Doesn't sound too familiar.
No?
Very briefly. We haven't.
Okay.
All right.
Good to know. Okay. Well, we're actually going to do a ternary here. So I'll introduce you guys to it a little further. Ternaries are kind of difficult at first, but once you understand how they're broken down and how they're used, they're actually pretty simple. So really all a ternary is it's a if-else statement where there's only two possible answers. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say, get in here, there we go. So we're going to say if input equals, oops, we need our equals, nothing. So if they just hit enter and they don't input anything, then we're not going to do anything. So what that's going to do is if they just hit enter and not input a new name or anything like that, it's just going to run to the next line of code. So this is our if. The question mark is our if in our if-else statement, okay?
What did you call this again? I'm sorry.
It's called a ternary, T-E-R-N-A-R-Y. Good thing to get a grasp on, especially once we get into React later in the cohort. Ternaries, you'll be using a lot of ternaries. So the sooner you get comfortable with them, the better off you're going to be later in the cohort. So that being said, so our question mark is our if statement, and then the colon is our else. So if else. So else. So if they don't hit enter and they actually input something, then we're going to put that into our contact hash as the first name. We're going to say that that is what input should equal. So, so this whole thing is just taking our user input and changing it up here in our array. So it's going to change it up here. And we have access to that because we called our view contacts method here, which gives us access to everything here. So it gives us access to our loop, and then we can push that through there. So that's kind of how that all connects. Kind of confusing, I understand. But the more you do it, like if you practice this a few times, you'll get it. Any questions on that though before we continue? Okay, good deal. Well, hopefully I didn't confuse you guys too much with that, but we'll go and keep going. So we're actually going to kind of read.
So I sent a link related with ternaries on the chat.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, any extra resources, it's good to share those with each other. I've actually been pretty impressed with you guys so far as your communication with each other, so definitely keep that going. I appreciate that, John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just reuse this a little bit just to save some time here. So we're going to use our Option Shift down, and we're just going to do that twice because we're going to need to get the last name and the phone number. So here we'll just change this to last for last name. Change this to last. Let's see. We're going to want to change. Oh, I misspelled update. Okay. And then let's change that to phone number. And here we'll just say number. And then down here, instead of first name, we're going to want phone. Okay, so that means if they input information, it's going to push it up to the array of hashes at the top. Okay, and then let's go ahead and call our main menu after that. Okay, so this should actually get our edit to work. So let's go ahead and try it out here and see if we're getting any bugs. Okay, so we're going to edit a contact. Let's go ahead and edit my name. Let's change it to my actual name. We're going to keep that the same, and we'll keep the same phone number. Okay, so now we're back at our main menu. Let's go ahead and see if it works. Let's go into our contacts, and it worked. So now it has my original first name instead of my nickname. So great, all right, so our edit works. Kind of tricky, but once you break it down, it's not too bad. Any questions on the edit method before we move along to delete?
I was actually wondering, maybe I'm just being lazy, but would it be possible line 100 and 101? Can you send that through Slack so I can put that information down?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we're done here tonight, I'm actually going to Slack out the entire code as well. So
Awesome.
would you prefer I just do that at the end, or do you want just that little snippet?
If you were actually planning to send the full thing at the end, I can just wait until then.
Okay, great. We'll do it that way. Perfect. Okay, any other questions on the edit before we move along to delete?
One thing I was actually noticing, I see you're not using comments very often, and I had a question about that, why you don't use it.
Because I'm in the bad habit of not doing it. So thank you for calling me out. No,
Also,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, DC. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, you're all good. It's actually a really good point. I really should be using a lot of comments. Maybe what I'll do is before I send this out tonight, I'll go through and I'll add in some comments and see if I can get myself into the habit. So thank you, John. Cool. What were you going to ask, Devin?
Yeah, so just right here on this last thing, I get it. We're getting the phone number update for the index of the hash that we're doing. So right there on line 101 exactly, that operation where we get a blank, it's so input equals blank question mark null or nil. And then so what does that tell me? I'm unfamiliar with that language right there. I see the input, it equals the input that we just got, and we're heading to contact and the phone location or the phone index for that. But I'm kind of just puzzled by the up at the front between.
So this part right here, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, no, excellent question. It's definitely kind of confusing. So what this is saying is if this input right here and this input are the same thing. So we're calling this variable right here.
Uh-huh.
So we're saying if the input that we get from the user equals nothing, then we're not going to do anything.
Okay.
So what that's going to do is it's just going to run to the next line of code. So it's going to ignore this part and just going to run to our next line.
Okay, and then that first colon right there, if we get nothing, then it's not going to do anything. But on the other hand, if true and we do have something input, then contact phone equals input.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, got it.
Yep. Perfect. Cool.
I have something really quick. I know
Sure.
I just have probably I'm accessing the main menu in the wrong place, or I have main menu somewhere where I shouldn't, but every time I'm able to pull up the contact list and the menu, but every time I enter in an entry, it just brings back up the main menu. I'm wondering.
Okay. I'm wondering if it might be somewhere up here in your case statement. Maybe you have an extra main menu or a missing one. But so every time you input something, it's just going back to the main menu?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably have to take a look at your code to figure
Yeah.
out where that's
No worries.
happening. But yeah, no worries. I'll take a look at that with you once we're done. So, all right. Okay. Any other questions about the edit contact before we move on to delete? No? Okay. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing pretty good. Okay. So let's go ahead and do delete. So once again, let's go up here and let's call our method first. That way we don't run into that error, and that way we know we're learning from our past mistakes, which is always important, not just in code, but in life. So let's go ahead and create our delete. So we're going to define delete contact. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call our view contacts method here first off again. That way we can give them the index and have them choose which one they want to delete. So just like pretty similar to what we did up here in our edit. Let's go ahead and just make a space, and then we're going to ask the user which contact would you like to delete. And do one of these so we know the user's prompted for input. And here what we're going to do is we're going to set an index variable, and we're going to get the user input, change it to an integer, and do -1. So that's doing the same thing that this is right here. But we're just doing it a little bit different just because it's going to make it a lot easier in our delete method. So we're setting an index variable to whatever the number they choose, that's going to be the index. Then we're going to set another variable, which is just called contacts. And then we're going to go into our contacts hash, or well, array of hashes, actually. And we're going to pass in the index. So this is going to go into our contacts, and it's going to grab the index here of whatever number they choose, and then we can have that display. So next, we're going to go ahead and do a puts. We're going to say, are you sure you want to delete? And we'll do contact first names. We're going to interpolate these because this will just get the user, we'll get their buy-in just to make sure that they're deleting the contact they meant to delete and didn't fat finger something. And then let's see, we'll do our contact and phone. Okay, and then we're going to prompt them for yes or no. And then we'll prompt them to give us some input. Okay, so we're going to actually do another ternary here. So we're going to say gets.strip, so whatever the user input is, if that equals yes, so if it's yes, then we're not going to do anything because we're going to move to the next line of code. If it's anything else, then we're going to send them to main menu. So this is just going to help the user so that if they actually want to delete the contact that they chose, they have to press the letter Y. If they press any other key on their keyboard, it's going to send them back to main menu. So that's going to make it really simple for the user, and it's going to eliminate any errors on their end, which I'm sure they'll appreciate. So remember, your question mark is your if, your colon is your else. So we're saying if the user input equals Y, so if it equals Y, then we're not going to do anything. Else, we're going to send them back to the main menu. Okay, so now we need to tell them what to do if they choose Y, because we're going to move on to the next line of code. And this is where we're going to do our delete method. So we're going to go into our contacts. We're going to delete at the index. So we're using this variable here in our delete at methods. That's the argument we're passing in. That way we know, okay, this is the contact that they chose. They chose yes, so this is the one that we want to delete. Now, just for user interface, we're going to go ahead and give them another little message. And we're going to say contact first name, and we'll only do last name. We won't worry about doing the phone number. We'll just add last name in case they have more than one person with the same name. There we go, if I can spell. Okay. Has been deleted. So that way they know, okay, that's the contact I chose, it's been deleted. And then we're going to go ahead and send them back to our main menu. And that should delete that contact and keep us looping through the menu. So let's go give that a shot here. Let's go and clear this out. Okay, we're going to run our code. Oh, what do we do here? Unexpected colon, expecting a string end. And that's on line 117. So that's here.
Yeah, I think it's your brackets.
It sure is. Good call. Forgot to add our square brackets around our interpolation. Oh, and I put that in the wrong place. There we go. That should do it. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go into number 4 for delete contact. Let's say John Terry was mean, so we're going to delete him. Sure you want to delete John Terry? Let's actually do another key. I'm just going to hit H. And it just pushes us back to the main menu. So let's try that again. Let's do John Terry. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes. Well, didn't like something here. Let's see. Undefined method put, line 117.
Yeah, you forgot S for puts.
Sure did. Sure did. Okay. Let's do that one more time. See, and again, real quick, just to reiterate, this is why it's important to test your code often. See how easy that is to find where the bug is? Test your code a lot. It'll really save you a lot of headache and stress and time. And let's be honest, you're already going to be under a lot of stress and headache already with this boot camp. So the more you can eliminate that, the better off you're going to be in the end. So let's go ahead and delete contact and do John Terry. Yes, I'm sure. Has been deleted. Let's go ahead and go into our view contacts. And here we see John Terry is gone. So it worked. So there we go. All right, so we now have a fully functional, with all the CRUD actions, contact list working. Has James explained CRUD actions yet?
Who?
James? Has he explained CRUD actions? C-R-U-D, CRUD actions?
No, he hasn't. Create, update,
Yeah.
delete, create, update, read, update, delete. We haven't gone over that.
Destroy.
Yeah, it'll be in a quiz, but he hasn't gone over it yet.
Okay. Yeah, so CRUD actions are just your main actions that Devin just told us there. Create, read, update, destroy. Those are the main actions you're going to be doing in any web application, basically. So So yeah, so we have a working application.
Yeah, it's kind of a very common with SQL world too. So if you interview for SQL and you don't know what crude is, then they usually won't hire you.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Cool. All right, so that's our working contact list. Any questions on the delete contact or anything else that we did tonight?
No.
All right, great. Well, we ended pretty early here. Let me go ahead and just stop the recording and everything.
Appreciate it though. That was really helpful to see you kind of go through that as well.